Now, there is one thing I never told you in all of my videos, and that is that at the beginning of my career in my previous company and previous toxic workplace, I had the chance to become a boss, believe it or not. Now, I was reluctant to tell you this story for one main reason. If you watched most of my videos, you can see that I was talking a lot about my previous boss, about the boss's mistress in the workplace, and about the third guy that was their friend of the mistress and the boss. And if I were to tell you that I was to become a boss but didn't, it would give a sort of a different connotation to the whole concept of the channel. To make things more clear, it would give you an idea that I was jealous of not becoming a boss and that all of this is sort of a outburst because of that. Well, I just wanted to tell you that it has nothing to do with that. I tell you from the bottom of my heart. As I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I'm not boss material, you know. I don't like to command people. I don't like to tell people what they should do. I don't like to micromanage people. I don't like to express any kind of authority upon other people unless they show it towards me. I'm sorry about my bad English, but I hope you get the point, you know. So please don't get this video the wrong way. I'm not this wannabe boss who is bitter about not being a boss. This is rather a story about how you should, if you get the chance, act differently in certain situations. That would be the point. So, what happened? Well, when I started working in my previous company, in the first 6 or 7 months, I got the offer to become the boss of the branch office. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. It may be a bit longer, but this is just for you to get a better idea of what happened. At that time, when I got hired in the company, we had a main boss of two branch offices. Okay, and he had this big idea of making the branch office I was supposed to work in the main branch office within the whole company. In my opinion, it was sort of ambitious, but you know, I really didn't care at that time. I needed the job and I needed the paycheck. Anyway, as fate would have it, he found me. I had the exact skill set that he needed for making that happen because the three workers that were already in the branch office, that is the mentioned boss that I talk about in my other videos, the boss's mistress and their best friend, were not capable of doing any kind of work that was needed. They were bad with computers, they were bad with certain programs, they did not want to learn, they were all old school type, they did not like to work, they didn't have any kind of working habit, and you know, those were the main problems. And if you agree with me, if you're starting a new business and it's supposed to be grandiose, all of those things are not welcome. And the boss at that time saw that. He was this person that was very um, tough to cooperate with. I think he had certain psychological problems, but he was very intelligent and he was very keen on the eye. I'm sorry for my bad English expressions, you know, and he could very soon conclude what was happening in every kind of situation. Anyway, he soon saw that they were actually a nuisance within the company. I think this is a pretty big word for explaining that, but I think you get the point. When you have people that can't do 95% of the needed work, I don't know what to say. When my first boss concluded what was the whole situation, he soon wanted to get rid of those three people. So, to get rid of my future boss, his mistress, and the best friend. Besides this, I would like to say that before I arrived to the company and to the branch office, those three were already working for something like under a year already within the company. And that boss didn't have good experiences with them. You know, he tried to teach them certain things, he tried to tell them they were supposed to do certain things and all of that, but they didn't really obey him. They had this opinion of their own, but there wasn't much work at that time in the branch office, so you know, they tolerated each other, I guess. I think that he already had some beef, so to say, against them. Anyway, what happened next is that he called me one day and he told me, you know, let's have a cup of coffee. I want to tell you something. You know, I have good news. I think that this is the way it went. I'm paraphrasing a bit. And we went to a coffee shop, had a cup of coffee, and he told me the news. He told me that he talked to the head management and that it would be good for me to be the boss of the branch office. And I was sort of surprised because A, I was the youngest worker in the company. B, there was my future boss working in the company, which was a seasoned worker. And why didn't you pick him instead of me? And all of a sudden, this started to be fishy for me. It didn't sound like a really good opportunity. And as the conversation went, I soon saw what the opportunity was about. He was, to name me, the boss of the branch office, but the first thing I was supposed to do is to get rid of those three people, to get rid of my future boss, his mistress, and the best friend, because he didn't want to get his hands dirty and he needed a sort of henchman to do it. That was the first thing that I didn't like. The second thing was that he planned to make a totally new team within the company. He needed 3 or 4 people additionally, and to make a completely new team because this one was practically useless. And that part I could have done. I had a lot of acquaintances at that time. I was good with people, and that was possible, and that wasn't the reason why I declined his offer, which I did. The main reason why I declined the offer was because I was supposed to leave 3 people without their livelihood, and I would never do that. And this is the big mistake I made, but I'll talk about this later in the video. I couldn't face the fact that I would leave 3 people without a job, without their paycheck. My future boss and his friend, I'm gonna call him like that, had families. The boss's mistress was a single mom, and losing that paycheck would also affect her seriously. And I just couldn't go through it. And that was the main reason, again, why I declined the whole offer. And I told them that when we finished that conversation. I told them not for that reason exactly, but I told them, I think I'm not ready. I don't think I'm gonna be able to do that. I think I'm a bit green in that job and everything else. And when I told him why didn't you pick my boss, because he's a seasoned and experienced worker, he told me it's not what he wants. I think he concluded what were my how should I put it, why I had second thoughts on the whole offer, and he just told me, well, okay, think about it and we'll talk about it on another occasion. Things will be the same as they are, but just give it a chance, think about it. And after a couple of days, what happened is that he calls me and he tells me, you've become the new boss of the branch office. And I was surprised and stunned. He told me, the paperwork is going to arrive by mail. You're supposed to sign it, and that's that. And I asked him, but didn't we talk about, I'm declining the offer. I don't want to be the boss of the branch office. He told me, don't worry about that. We'll talk about it, everything else. And he sort of pushed me into that position. What can I say? At that moment, I was afraid that if I said no, I would get fired and I would lose the paycheck, lose the much needed job, and I would never find a job like that in the town I live. And all in all, I became the boss unwillingly. And here we come to the main point of this story. Since there is a certain procedure when becoming a boss in that company, the paperwork comes through mail, then comes the first boss, then the phone calls start, for certain people to meet me over the phone, what I'm supposed to do, to introduce me into the whole state of things and everything else. So, while I was doing that and beginning to become swamped with it, I saw that the future boss, the mistress, and the best friend of theirs, they were furious. They were so mad, and they were so like, how did this happen, and what is this jerk doing? You could cut a knife through the whole situation. But what can I say? The situation was such for me that I had to do it. And again, at the back of my mind, there was always this notion that soon those people would leave the company. Not to mention the fact that the head office, and I learned of that later, already prepared a resignation note for one of them, and later was to prepare a resignation note for all of them to get laid off. So the whole boss arrangement and me being a boss lasted only about 2.5 to 3 months, And at that time, I asked the co-workers that worked with me, I asked those people, if we could keep things as they were before, as usual. And since there was a period of big work and lots of expensive work arriving, if we could keep things the same as they were before all of this, get through that period and then we'll see, what happens. But they didn't have the same idea. Although there was lots of work, and I was swamped with work all the time through this sort of peripheral vision, when you see things with the sort of, I don't know how to say it, side eye, I saw that there was something going on. They didn't care about work, but they were rather enraged by the fact that I was the boss, and I think they started actively plotting against me because I saw certain things like, them talking between each other. Then I saw them talking to the head office. Frequently, I think they even had those conversations out of the office and on their private phones and so on. And all in all, I had this sixth sense that something was happening. Something's going to change, something's going to happen, and so on. And that was for the good, because if I imposed myself as the boss and started acting like a jerk, then that would backfire on me, because this happened. After the second month of me being the boss of the branch office, my first boss got fired. The guy who had the whole arrangement for me being the boss for the branch office, for the big work and everything else, he got laid off. He did this serious thing within the company that was intolerable, and he got fired, and that was it. And that went like a shockwave through the whole company. We were all very surprised at what was happening, what was wrong, and everything else. All in all, we got a mail in the branch office that he was gone, and now every branch office is left to itself. I would lie to you if I didn't say that I was a bit surprised. I was questioning myself, what are we going to do now, and everything else. But to be honest, I had this feeling that because I did most of the work, that the branch office I was working in would eventually prevail, because I had most of the know-how to push us through the whole thing. But this is what happened. After about 10 days or something like that, a guy from the head office came to our branch office. And his sole purpose of him coming to the office was to tell me that I was to be relieved of the boss position, and that my then future boss would take that position. There was a switcheroo. And he came to the office, he told me that, and what can I say? I was sort of relieved, Again, he was the more experienced worker, and in the line of job I was in, if you don't know exactly what you're doing, and if certain situations occur, then you can get yourself and the company into trouble if you don't know what you're doing. This was another mistake that I made. Again, I'll talk about that later. Anyway, he told me that. I said okay. I even congratulated my new boss and everything else. And when the whole sort of small ceremony was finished, the guy from the head office, I'll never forget this, he told me, he was standing up and he told me, "You're clear on the fact that this guy's, he said his name, is the boss now?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I am. Why are you telling me this?" No, I'm going to tell you again. Are you crystal clear with the fact that this guy is going to be the boss? And I said, "Yes, I am. Why are you telling me twice? And why are you asking me this? Is there any reason?" And he told me, no, there's no reason. I just want to be clear that you know that. And it was sort of this tone where I don't know how to tell you. It was sort of this tone where you get the notion that there were certain conversations done before all of this was happening. There were certain conversations between my future boss and that guy. And, I got this notion, wow, this is turning into some sort of, how should I put it, wider type of plotting. And, I said yes, and it all went through, and that was that. So when my future boss then became actually the boss, things became much worse for me. In what way? Well, I soon saw that this was a person who was waiting for this kind of position for years. Even in the previous companies he worked in, I think he was waiting for this kind of position, for him to be the boss and the master of the universe, so to say. And the moment he started, and again, this is my opinion, so you don't have to take it for granted. At the moment he became the boss, he started plotting to get me out of the company. He wanted actually to do two things: for me to give up most of my knowledge that I had, and to bring someone else, and to get rid of me out of the company so he could continue with his love affair and whatnot. So things seriously changed for me when he became the boss. After that, when the news went around that he became the boss, everybody congratulated him from the company. The mistress came apart from her own shift, came into the office and kissed with the boss, congratulated him. Their best friend came and sucked up to the boss immediately, and it was really pathetic to see. And everything that happened within the next 10 years that I had to endure all of that crap within the company is, I told this in my testimonial video, is mostly me coping with that kind of behavior and fighting against it, fighting against their plotting and against them trying to push me out of the company, and to, just stay sane with all that hatred, all that plotting and everything else, and to simply earn my paycheck like a decent human being. That was, at the end of the story, that was impossible, and I had to leave. So, dear viewer, that's the whole story. And now we come to the point and the lesson of all of this. And I'm sorry if I've taken too much of your time. Where was the mistake? Well, looking in retrospective, there was a couple of mistakes. The first mistake was, if you get the chance in a toxic workplace to be the boss, be the boss. Do not be reluctant like I was, and have empathy and have certain moral issues. If you have the chance, especially if the job is less responsible than mine was and with less risk, take the boss job. Don't miss that opportunity. Why? Well, because you'll have much less obligations, perhaps. You'll have much less responsibilities, perhaps. You'll have much less. You'll manipulate more, but work less and have less strain. That's the main good thing of being a boss in a toxic workplace. The second mistake I made was not to be more, and this is gonna sound very harsh, not to be more pushy about firing those people from the company. I had a chance that lasted 2 whole months, and instead of using that chance to get them fired and employ other people, which I would be able to work with, and I would make a good team, I wouldn't even have to be the boss with that team. It wouldn't matter. I think I would make a team that would make a much better atmosphere for working. Well, I didn't use that 2 months chance and push the initiative to fire them and get rid of them. Instead, I swamped myself in work, put the company in first place, and what I got in return is the people that hated me became the main people within the branch office. The boss became, the head honcho. And finally, I had to leave my beloved company because of that. Another reason why I was reluctant to become the boss, because I saw that those 3 people, my coworkers, would absolutely not listen to me. Perhaps I would make some sort of system where they would have to listen to me. But what I saw was that they were, again, very angry that I was becoming the boss and they were not in this higher position, especially the future boss. And I saw that I was going to have big problems, and they made this sort of very clear to me with their behavior. And I saw that I'm going to have 3 people working with me that are not going to listen to me and that are not going to behave well. And, all of that can lead to them causing me very big problems. And the big mistake was keeping my mouth shut when I think I should have told what was happening within the branch office. Now, my situation was specific. Again, I am the sole provider of my family. I needed the job desperately at that time. I desperately needed the money. I just started a family and everything else. And I thought that getting into a deeper conversation and argument would just get me fired. What do I want to say? if you remember from the story, when that guy from the head management came to the branch office and told me that I'm not going to be boss and told my future boss that he's becoming the boss, I should have asked, well, how are you going to give a boss position to someone who has a love affair within the company? Or how are you going to do all of that work if and I'm talking about the best friend of theirs, if that person is slacking all the time, and isn't working 20% of what he's supposed to do? Or how is that person going to lead the branch office when he doesn't know 90% of what he's supposed to do? And I didn't say any of that. Instead, I kept my mouth shut because I was afraid of losing my job. And that, dear viewer, was the mistake. Instead of telling and instead of asking and perhaps, getting into a conversation, an argument, I kept my mouth shut. Maybe things would be different, but at that time I had this notion that even if I told that, things would be the same because, again, I think there was some sort of plot behind that. I hope you got the point of the whole story. So if you have a chance within a toxic workplace to get the boss position, take it, Don't doubt yourself. Don't be someone that's gonna think about what's gonna happen, don't be stupid and get yourself into trouble. But if you have a less risky job, if there is a position where you can manipulate more, especially if you're prone to it, and work less, take the position. Don't think about it. My boss that had that position virtually had I would say about maybe 10% of risk, The rest of the risk was on the workers, not him. In return, he could leave whenever he wanted. He went on sick leave whenever he wanted. He didn't come to work when he wanted. He drank at work, heavily. He had a full-blown love affair. Who could ask for more in a boss position for those people who like to be bosses? So if you have the chance, the point is you can save yourself and your back seriously from lots of burden and lots of toxic behavior, perhaps, especially if you're blessed and get a boss position where you do not have to deal with people that much, but deal more with work and the practical stuff. So that's it for this time. I hope this video helps. Above all, I hope that this video will help get through tough times, and through my certain experiences will give you some notion of what you're supposed to do in certain situations. Again, all of this comes from experience, and again, I hope it helps. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. Please like and subscribe. It's a huge help for what we're doing, and I hope I'll see you in the next video.